Hey everybody, Mr. Eric here. How you doing today? Got another headphone review for you today. This is one that I've been wanting to do for quite a while. It's a little bit special for me because this is actually the first time somebody has just sent me a headphone that I was able to review for the channel. So to the person that did that, thank you. I appreciate it. And I will get them back to you here very soon. So or hopefully you already have them actually. But anyway, so it is the Argons, the Modhouse Argons. And, you know, if you've been poking around headphone forums for any amount of time, you've probably heard, seen, heard lots of people say good things about these headphones. So let's take a look at them and let's talk about, are they as good as everybody says they are? So if you don't know what the Modhouse Argon is, it is a modded headphone based on the Fostex T50RP. Now, the specific model that I'm reviewing here is the drop version of that headphone. So that's called the TXO, but essentially it is a T50RP MK2. These headphones are no longer available, so now you'll have to get the MK3 Argons, or you'll have to buy the T50RP MK3 version and you'll send it to Modhouse to have it modified. So what it is it's a semi-open planar magnetic headphone, and there's all sorts of different mods available for this. A lot of people, a lot of big headphone companies at this point are people that started modding these headphones. So ZMF, Dan Clark, Mr. Speakers, and then you know, we've still got Modhouse, which seems to be doing very well, because if you want to get a set of these, you're gonna have to wait at least, you know, 2 or 3 months to get them. They are the build on these, you know, I'll just go over the build here real quick. I mean, the build is the T50RP, right? So the drop version is kind of blacked out, and it came with its own headband, but this is the Modhouse headband that's put on there. And then plastic cups, right? And these have ZMF pads on them. These ones are the protein pads. So, and then you can see that this one has had the balance mod put on. Now, I'm not 100% sure about this since I didn't actually get this done. Somebody sent it to me. I think that the balance mod was done by the original owner of these, so I don't think this is how Modhouse does their balance, but I could be wrong about that. But if you don't do the balance, then it's just a single 3.5 cable coming in to this. I only tested these with the protein pads on them. I didn't want, since it wasn't my headphone, I didn't want to, you know, pull off pads and risk ripping them and things like that. So I just left the pads on it that they were sent to me with. And this is, I think, the configuration that most people would end up using. It seems like it's recommended to get the proteins if you get the MK3 version, and the lambskin if you have the MK2. Again, I have the MK2, but I think these are the protein pads. So that's just so you know where I'm at. Now, this headphone it looks pretty chunky, right? But it is super comfortable with these pads and the strap on it. I have zero comfort issues with these headphones. I can wear them for long periods of time. I did notice them getting hot after, you know, maybe around 45 minutes of use. I noted that a couple of times in my notes as I was reviewing them. So that's just one thing to mention if you're sensitive to that. Being semi-open, they don't isolate extremely well, but they do isolate. So you get some cancellation of noise from the outside, and there's not much leakage, but you won't get total isolation. So that's something to note. I did have for a while, worth noting, an MK2 version of the T50RPs. That was one of my first forays into audiophile headphones because I wanted to get them, try them, mod them. I wish I still had them, but I ended up trading them away for, of all things, a set of Audio-Technica M50s. So not a great decision on my part, but yeah, anyway, back to the headphones. So what you're going to have to do is order this headphone and either send it in to get modified or order it straight from Modhouse. Now, the price that it's going to come into is going to be with, with a set of the big cushy pads. It's going to end up being around $300, either any way you slice it, right? Whether you get it straight from Modhouse or you send in your own headphones, and you're going to have to wait 2 to 3 months. Outside of that, I think for this price range, these headphones are really, really good if you're looking for like a closed back headphone. So bass, if you've heard anything about these headphones, it's probably 2 things. They've got a lot of bass, and they've got a pretty big sound stage for closed or semi-closed headphones. And I found both of those things to be true as I was doing my testing and listening to this, which, by the way, was mostly done on my Odyssey Deckard, which is a pretty powerful Class A amplifier. I did try them on a couple of other things, and I would mostly agree that they are, somewhat difficult to drive. I noted that they seem like they want more power than just about anything else I've tested recently. So that is one thing to note. That being said, I honestly don't know that you need like tons and tons of power. I think any of your typical $100 amps should probably be sufficient to drive these. If you've got a watt of power or so, I think you're probably good in that regard. At least that was my experience with it. So how do they sound besides the bass? Well, let's talk about the bass a little bit. There's a lot of quantity there. It's not super refined bass, but it does sound good. I do enjoy it. It's definitely not as detailed or textured as like the Odyssey LCD2s or the LCD2 pre-phasers, but that, again, that's not really a fair comparison because this headphone isn't really in that same ballpark, price-wise and build-wise and things like that. I did think that this headphone was really well separated. I even drew like a little picture when I was testing these where I kind of felt like, the lows were kind of in their own box and the mids in their own box and the highs in their own box. Like they do a really good job of keeping everything clean and separate, which is kind of interesting because the bass is so present and a little bloaty that you would think it would bleed into the mids, but I actually didn't find that really happened at all. So mids, I'll come back to the mids here in a second. Let's talk about the highs. The highs are pretty inoffensive. I don't think they're super well extended. I did note that I thought maybe they were a little compressed sounding, but for the most part, it's unoffensive. It's easy to listen to. I didn't really see much of a problem. The mids are probably where my biggest gripe would be. I would say that the mids are scooped out just a little bit, and I would prefer that they were just a little more forward and a little more present. But that being said, I do think they have a really nice natural timbre to them. I don't feel like voices sound artificial at all. I did note that maybe they sound a little bit compressed as well. So again, I don't think there's definitely not quite as much resolution in the Argons here that I'm used to lately, but I can still totally get into and enjoy using these headphones. Like I said, they're nice and wide, good separation, and just good, easy listen headphone. Nice and warm tonality to it. So really, I was pretty impressed, to be honest with you. Now, I did have to kind of warm up to them. Like, initially when I put them on, and again, coming from like the Alex and the LCD2 pre-phaser and the GL2000, those are what I've been listening to mostly lately. Like, it did take some adjustment time, but now that I've been listening to these just kind of solely for like a few days here, I'm like perfectly happy. If I'm A-Bing it with any of those headphones, it really makes me notice a lot more of the faults with the Argons, but if I'm just listening to the Argons, I'm like perfectly content listening to them. So I think that's a pretty good compliment that I can give to these headphones. So do I recommend them? Yeah, definitely. I totally would recommend these if you don't mind waiting, a few weeks to get them. That's really the only downside to these guys, is you got to wait to get them. The good news is, though, is because there is that wait time, that means anybody that wants them right now can't go out and buy them. So if you were to get a set and you end up deciding you don't like them for whatever reason and want to sell them, they move pretty frequently on the used market, and even they seem to sell for a little bit more than you can get them for if you send them in and get it done yourself. And I think that just comes from the fact that they are a little bit harder to get your hands on them. So yeah, for $300 or so, I think, these are definitely a winner. In my head, I was like trying to think of what would they even be competing with really in that price range. And like the only thing I could really come up with would be like the M1060C, or maybe the Elegia if it's on sale, or maybe, one of the Fostex like XOO headphones might fall into that range. And I've listened to all of those headphones, but I don't have any of them on hand to compare it to directly. I would say, thinking about that, I would take this over the Fostex 100%. I wasn't a big fan of those. I thought the bass was way overdone I guess I had the EMU Teaks when I had them. So I would take this over those. The M1060C, I think, is a little bit chiller closed back than these are, and so is the Elegia. Those would be more accurate neutral headphones if we're talking about the M1060C closed, whereas this is more of a V-shape warm sound to it. So I could see people wanting to go that way instead of these, if you're looking for more of like a neutral-ish sound, maybe a little bit more detail, more resolution. I think maybe either of those would be good options for you. But again, if you're looking for a fun bassy headphone that's closed back around $300, I think this should definitely be on your short list for sure. Okay, well, again, thank you to the Headfire that sent these out to me. I really appreciate that. And if you've been following the channel and there's a headphone that you got that you wouldn't mind hearing my thoughts on, get in touch with me, and maybe we can work that out. That'd be pretty cool. It is kind of nice to make those connections with people, and I am starting to make more of those as the channel is slowly but surely growing. So by the way, too, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. And I'm gonna have several other I'll be continuing to attempt to release weekly videos here in the near future on topics kind of around headphones, amp stacks, things like that. If you enjoyed the video, if you'd like to stick around, I would certainly appreciate it. Also, feel free to comment down below. Do you have the Argons? Do you feel the same way about them? Have you heard them? Do you agree, disagree? I think starting that discourse in the comments down below is wonderful, and I would encourage any and all opinions to weigh in, just so anybody that's listening or trying to make a decision can have, as many viewpoints as possible is all good. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.